So this is our third video in the Haskane Research Ethics for Coursework series, and here we're going to talk about how to actually implement the research ethics in the course and some basics that you would need to know. So the ethics forms that you would typically need for class project research are student code of conduct, a confidentiality agreement in some cases, not all cases, and informed consent documents. And these could be either letters of consent or verbal or written scripts that would be given to people before they participate in the research or into the discussions. So the Student Code of Conduct is a document that was prepared by Haskane School of Business students several years ago, and it really addresses a commitment to uphold the reputation and the reputation of the Haskane School of Business and its students and alumni in the community. And the idea is here to recognize what it takes to be a respectful and professional researcher as a student. Each person in the class should sign one and then upload a copy into the D2L Ethics Dropbox. So that could be as simple as signing the paper copy and then just making a JPEG on your phone and uploading it to D2L. Very practical and basic. Do take the time to read the document. It was really well done. Then in some cases you may need to have a confidentiality agreement or a non-disclosure agreement. And this would be, in some cases it'll be the course itself that will have a confidentiality agreement, and in some cases it will be the organization. Most of the professors and most of the instructors at Haskane will happily sign whatever needs to be signed in order to enable your coursework. When the document is signed by all the parties, make sure everyone has a copy of the fully signed document, and then upload a copy to the D2L Course Ethics Dropbox, just in order to have a legal archive for the school and for yourself if it's ever needed. So each course or project does have different requirements. So just depending on what is required, that's what you would sign and then upload into the D2L Dropbox. Then there is the question of implementing informed consent. So if you are doing an interview or a survey and you're just going to use a script, either that can be spoken or that would be read by the participant, then you would figure out the exact wording that's appropriate for your project and for the context. And then once it's typed up and you're happy with it and that fulfills all the requirements for informed consent, then upload a clean copy of that to the D2L Dropbox so that it's can be found back if necessary. And so there's an archive for both you and for the instructor of the course. And if you are collecting and using confidential or transparent information or data. So in other words, if you're doing getting data from a company to use for the project, so actual accounting data perhaps, or finance data, or marketing data, or if you're doing in-depth interviews, then you would probably want to have a signed consent letter so that you have documentation of the consent and not just that you have the wording of that conversation, which is what a verbal script is. So then you would prepare an appropriate signed consent letter using the template that's provided and then adapting to the project, and sign it and get the participant to sign it as well. Make sure everybody has a copy of the fully signed consent letter and then upload a copy to D2L. And the reason we're doing all of that is because we're trying to create an archive. So you're customizing, you're not just taking a template off the shelf, you are customizing to your situation, but then uploading all the copies, whether it's letters, scripts, whatever, uploading it all into the D2L Ethics Dropbox. And truthfully, we hope that we never have to go and look for them again, but if we do, we know where they are. If you do have information that you got perhaps without realizing that you would use it, and then later on need to have some informed consent, which you didn't arrange before perhaps an informal interview, but now you realize you want to use that data. So then you would want to do a release form, which is a type of informed consent where they would say, knowing about your project, knowing about what we discussed, I will allow you to use that information. And sometimes these release letters can be very limited to saying it's just for this course and nobody else can see it and it can never be used outside of the course. And in some cases, it will be much broader. They don't care. They haven't given you that sensitive information. And so they're very happy if it's used by the professor, by you, over a short period of time, over a long period of time. Doesn't matter. It's important to get that in writing, though. And then we need to adapt as necessary to whatever the situation is. But as a general principle, we try to get as broad a permission for use of the information as possible. And so you would want to think about, for example, in a course that you might want to be doing a presentation to your colleagues, you might have a deliverable to the professor, but then perhaps you also might want to use that presentation in future job interviews to show what you're capable of. And all those scenarios have to be covered under the release if that's what you want to do. So think about the scenarios and make sure that the letters cover those options. And if you came up with a new scenario that wasn't covered in the original one, then you just do another release form. This is not something we should fuss about, but just follow through. That's all we're asking for. And again, all the copies uploaded to D2L in order to create a proper archive that you've done the research ethics documentation properly. So this is the third video. Thank you for your patience, and I hope you enjoyed and learned from these videos.